So guys, this is going to be an interesting vid. This is basically patch 4.4, and by interesting I mean a departure from the norm, not like a wildly energetic and enthralling piece of gameplay. Patch 4.4 is featuring a tremendously large amount of small balance changes, and I'm going to break it all down for those of you that want to watch. This may also be the type of video where you just want to put it on in the background, lie down and have a little bit of help with the old insomnia, because it is going to go through an awful lot of stuff. 4.4 contains a ridiculous amount of small balance changes, which is good because it shows you guys that the guys at the Blitz dev team headquarters are actually paying attention and listening and trying to make sure that there is a real parity within the game within tanks. But for all that, it means that a lot of the tanks, if they're tanks you're not interested in, aren't really going to be things that you want to know about. There are, however, some monumentally large changes to some of the prime movers in Blitz, namely French Lights and the VK2801, which is one of the greatest tanks to ever shine my shoes. So watch on. I decided it was originally a very dry video with just garage chat, but what I've done now is I've minimized the size of that garage chat, and it's basically, that's going to be in a small window in the corner, and I'm going to have some gameplay running in the background for most of it. So if you want to watch the gameplay, you can. But yeah, there you go. Enjoy. See you later, team. Well, hello there. Humans, bees, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz. Whoa, haven't we got some things to talk about today? If you're looking at the bottom of the screen here, they're all the tanks that will be affected by balance changes in patch 4.4. And if you're thinking that's a lot of tanks, it's because it really, really is a lot of tanks. And I'm going to get through all of them and talk about all of them. Some of the ones that I think are a little uncalled for. But overall, look, I think Wargaming's kind of got it right. A lot of these tanks have needed buffs, and the majority of changes are positive ones. The majority of changes are big buffs, or at least buffs that I think are very, very apt and very, very much a long-term requirement. Unfortunately, there is a nerf of something in there that we will get to, in which I just want to state right now that the VK2801, it is not my fault it's getting nerfed. Yes, I did a video about how overpowered it was, but that's like the 4th video I've done stating that it is one of the most overpowered monsters in the game. And let's be honest, how many tanks have we got at the moment? We have a ridiculously large amount of vehicles in the game. Just a monstrously large amount of vehicles in the game. It's like, what, 230, something like that. It's a crazy number. And for mine, the VK has been number 1 or 2 on that list for, well, since it started. And if you're at the top of a tree that is that long and extensive, you are a special tank. And you've probably been too strong for much too long. And I don't know how it's waited this long for it to get nerfed. But I'll get to the VK and I'll get to the others. I'm going to start with the premium tanks because these are the ones that the people pay money for, obviously. And we've got a lot of changes to get through. So keep your hat on. A lot of these things are going to be little numbers. Like the Matilda 4, it's got a reload reduction. So from 7.38 seconds to 7 seconds flat. So it's dropped 0.4 of a second. It's had an increase in its AP shell penetration numbers from 97 to 110 millimeters, which is actually a big number. That's like 14% or something. Big number. And the average armor pen likewise has gone up again for APCR. The dispersion on turret traverse was decreased. Now you're going to hear me say that a few times throughout this patch chat. Basically, what that means is when you turn your turret, there is a hidden stat that's not displayed in game, and it's a coefficient. Say it's 1.12 or something. That means that your dispersion on everything is multiplied by that coefficient. The lower that number, the better it is. And the Matilda 4's dispersion on turret traverse was decreased. So that's the number we're talking about. It's a hidden stat. You can find it on Blitz stars. In the tank compare section there. It's really, really handy. I use it all the time in videos for review purposes, but there you go. Performance on all types of ground was improved for that tank as well, and it got a horsepower buff. Now, Again, the performance on all type of ground thing is terrain resistance stats. This is another hidden stat, but basically, again, the lower the number, the better. The better the coefficient, the better it is for your traverse and everything like that. Tanks like the Object 140 have crazy low numbers on terrain resistance stats. And a lot of the light tanks have really, really low numbers on terrain resistance stats. And that means that they're less affected by slower terrain, because you have medium, slow, and hard terrain in the game. Swamps versus a gravel road, for instance. You've got two very, very different types of terrain there, and you have a high terrain resistance number generally in a swamp. So the lower that number, the better. So that's performance has been improved. Excellent. Great work. Now we move on to the Churchill 3. This is another Lend-Lease tank. You can see on the Russian side of things. I think it's a Lend-Lease tank. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Traverse speed was increased on this one by about 3 degrees, up to 20.86 from 17.73. And they added another gun. Now, this is something they've done a lot lately with premium tanks like the IS-6, where they put another gun on there to give you a couple of options. So you now have the 6-pounder, the Mark IV, with 17.18 rounds per minute, or you can go and get a gun with a bigger alpha, a 75mm gun, a 76 in this case is this 96, with 9.63 rounds a minute. The difference between the two, the pen's a little bit lower on the 76mm, but the alpha is much, much higher, which is lovely, and your dispersion is better as well, and it's not the pew 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 gun that you get on the standard Churchill 3. So that's pretty cool. Reload time is 6.23 seconds, aim time of 4 seconds, an average pen of 110, 155, and 20 on AP, APCR, and HE. Now there's a lot to take in here, guys, so I'm not going to loiter too much on these ones. They're pretty straightforward stuff. SU-85i, aim time on the SU-85i, this little number here was decreased from 5.7 to 4.7 seconds total, which is pretty cool. Very, very cool. And your dispersion was massively reduced from 0.403 to 0.336, which is like 0.67 dispersion reduction, which is what, 15%? 15% reduction in dispersion, which is pretty freaking awesome. So that becomes obviously a lot more amenable as a drivable vehicle. The T14. Again, another raw reload time decrease, down to 6.23 seconds from 7.58. You know, that's nearly a 1.3 second drop, or it is, it's a 1.35 second drop, which is pretty freaking cool. Aim time, massive reduction, 0.5 of a second, which is 10%. Dispersion was reduced by 0.3, from 0.441 down to 0.412. And a big increase in traverse speed from 20.86 to 23.99. Dispersion on the move and hull traverse was decreased as well. That's another one of those hidden stats. Good old Excelsior picked up a bit of a lovely buff there too as well. Reload time was decreased from 7.48 to 6.23, and performance on all types of ground was improved. So not a huge amount there for the Excelsior, but I thought that was already a strong tank, so it got better. A lot of these are going to be premium tank buffs that are just kind of little bits and pieces here and there, not huge. Matilda Black Prince actually picked up a couple of really cool things. It got a massive horsepower buff from 190 horsepower to 320. Traverse speed was increased by 2 degrees up to 38.59, and again the hidden stats, performance on all types of ground was improved. So if you own these tanks, hats off to you. If you were thinking about buying them, the decision probably got a little bit easier. My good mate, the SU-100Y, copped a big aim time. Now, I think this tank is brilliant. I had a great time running it. I did very, very well with it. And it got a big aim time reduction from 6.7 seconds to 5.5. And the dispersion on gun traverse was also decreased, which is pretty big. Hey, like, yeah, so buff for that. My good old mate, the Every Swinging Dicker Max, reload time down to 9.58 seconds and aim time down to 4.3 seconds. So the Dicker Max keeps getting a buff just about every 2 or 3 patches and is slowly becoming quite cool. I might have to do a review of the Dicker Max sometime soon. Now, if we go to just normal tech tree tanks, we're going to have a look firstly at the Ruskies, the MT25. What they did with the MT25 was they brought in an alternative gun. Now, this is pretty interesting because this is the new gun. This is the 57mm C10. It's got 4 shells in the magazine. You can see this one had 8 shells in the magazine. And the new gun has a reload time of 0.67 seconds for each shell, a reload time for 11 seconds on the magazine, 4.7 seconds aim time, and the APR PCR, and this is the big one for me. The AP pen is 130 millimeters. The old gun, the 45 millimeter S20, I think it may actually do more damage. I'm not certain. I haven't run the numbers yet. But the big thing for me is that you now have a gun that does 130 millimeters of AP pen. It's a game changer for this tank. Previously, I quite often would drive this gun, the 76mm S54, because the pen on this tank was so crap. When you're firing an autoloader, the dispersion is huge. The bloom on dispersion is really, really big, so you couldn't always hit what you aimed for with the second shot, that's for sure. 130mm of pen is a 30% buff on pen. It's a flat 30% buff on penetration for your autoloader, which is huge. And you're up to 175mm pen on your APCR. It's a proper gun. It's a tier 5 gun that actually works. And it's the gun I'd be running this tank with all day long. 0.336 dispersion. It costs 7,500 XP to research it. But if you wanted to give this tank a real go, that's the one I'd run. It's a bit annoying that you've got to go through this crap gun, but that was always a second tier gun for me, and this feels like a real gun for a tier 6 light. So it should really see an improve in the performance of those that do like the MT25. I think it's going to make it a lot more viable. Now let's have a look at the SU100. Where have you gone, amigo? Here we go. SU100. Hit point increase, which is a bit of a quality of life one, but it was a big buff. 760 to 850, so nearly 100 hit points on that one. About 12% as a hit point increase. The 122mm D25C gun. That's, where are we here? D25S. This is a bit odd. D2. It's got to be this one. Reload time was decreased from 15.87 to 13.89. I mean, that's right in line with that. So I'd expect that is actually the gun that they're talking about. Aiming time was decreased from 6.9 to 6 seconds. So that's the stats. I think that's just a clerical error there. It's not the 5C, it's the 5S. And for the 100mm D10C gun, which is this one here, that's the D10S, reload time was decreased from 9.54 to 8.05 seconds. Here comes the big ones. These for me are some massive changes. I always thought the Stug was good. Like, I drove this thing, did a review on it and everything, thought it was great. Stuggy. This has had a hit point increase from 520 to 560. Always happy to get more hit points. The forward speed was increased from 40 to 55 kilometers an hour. That's a 15 kilometer an hour increase. That's absolutely monstrous. That's like 30%, a 30% increase. No, it's more than that. It's like a 35% increase in top speed. And it gets there quick too. So that's just a massive landscape changer for this tank straight away, mobility wise. And 10 to 15 kilometers an hour backwards now, 15 kilometers an hour now instead of 10 backwards now. The view range was increased as well. So you've gone from the 220 meters of view range out to 240. Dispersion on the move and hull traverse was decreased, and performance on all types of ground was improved. So those are the hidden stats again, but they're absolutely massive. Those are some crazy big numbers. Now let's get to this little number here. So it's had a, okay, for the different guns, and this is a funny tank because this tank has a lot of guns. Like, have you ever seen a tank? It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 possible variables in terms of guns, which is just stupid, but there you go. 7 guns. For the 7.5 centimeter KWK 37, which is up here, isn't it? There we go, L24. Aiming time was decreased from 5 to 4.1. Great. And then you move on to the L60. Aiming time was decreased from 5 to 4.1. Ripper. Because if these are the guns you want to use, happy days. This is the joy you get. And then the L43. And this is a whole branch here from 5.1 to 4.2, and it also got a reload time decreased from 8.32 to 7.197 seconds. Now, they're more quality of life changes because the gun you want is the one at the top of the tree, the tier 7 gun. But, you know, I still don't think that's a great tank, regardless. We move onwards and upwards. Let's have a look at the tier 6. Oh, we haven't got that one in there. Let's have the VK. Righto. VK3601H, which I actually think is a fine tank, and I've had a really good time driving it. It's got 4 guns in total, and I all copped a buff. Here we go. The KWK 37L24. Obviously, that is the same gun that you get on the VK 3001H. Where are we? The KWK 37L24. Interesting. Not there so much. Okay. Yep, that's not making any sense at all. I believe that this is for the 3001H still. Okay. Yeah, sorry, what am I doing? I'm talking about the turrets. Ugh, I'm an idiot. For the 3601H turret, the KWK... I'll just take it from the ones from the turret on up. So this is the first one. This is the KWK 40L48. It had a reload time was decreased from 7.71 to 7 seconds, and the aiming time was decreased from 4.8 to 3.9. For the L28, which is again another gun on the road to justice. That's the 105mm. There were no changes. Moving right along, you get the next big job, the L70. The L70 reload time was decreased from 8.06 to 7 seconds, and the aiming time was decreased from 5.5 to 4.2, so happy days. And then you get to the one that you're really loving and loitering about, and that is the 75mm Voff, whatever you want to say. If you're German, you probably want to pronounce it correctly, but I'm not, so happy days. Hats off for you, Deutschland. The 0725. Reload time on this gun was decreased from 7.73 to 7 seconds, so that's a 10% buff on your reload. Aim time was decreased from 5.4 to 4.4. It's already a very mobile tank, and dispersion on turret was decreased, so it's going to be a real shock to the system. If you liked this tank already, and I did, it got better. It got better in so many different ways, both through the stock grind and through your final ultimate destination. I've been putting this one off. Here we go. VK2801. My favourite tank ever in game. My very favourite tank ever in game has finally fallen. It's come back to earth with a thud. It was really the fastest tank in game in terms of overall speed, coupled with its lovely ground-hugging terrain resistance. So it didn't slide out all the time. It hugged corners very well. It had fantastic stable gravity as it went through the turns. Its top-end speed has been cut by about 10%. It's down to 65 kilometers an hour from 72. Oh, this just makes me cry. The reload time on the gun was increased from 6.19 to 6.42. So it got worse in terms of DPM. The aim time was increased from 4 to 4.4, which is a 10% increase in aim time, which sucks. Dispersion was increased from 0.326 to 0.345. All those are bad changes. They are things that are going to make it tougher to drive, right? But they're going to make it tougher to drive in the margins. They won't kill the tank stone dead. What will really make it a lot tougher to drive and will really probably remove it from the stable garage love that it receives from so many of us is the depression and gun elevation angles. Previously, the VK had everything. It had fantastic, incredible top-end speed and mobility. It had brilliant camo on the move. It had great DPM. It had good aim time. It had excellent dispersion, and it had 9 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of gun elevation. So it really literally had everything. There was nothing it was missing. It's now missing gun depression. It's down to minus 6 degrees of gun depression and 17 degrees of gun elevation. So, yeah. say. What's replacing it in super overpowered? Well, what about we try the Jagdpanzer IV? Forward speed increased from 38 kilometers an hour to 45 kilometers an hour. So it got a massive buff. Over 10%. Happy days. Reverse speed from 10 to 14 kilometers an hour. The reload speed on the... where are we here? They've put some very odd numbers in this... where's the L48? There it is. 39 L48, your stock gun. Reload time was decreased from 5.18 to 4.03, which is big reduction. More than 20%. Big reduction. So stock, straight away, it's better. So it's faster. The reload speed on your stock gun has increased, so it does more raw damage per minute, which is more damage. How can you not like more damage? I mean, I like it. The L28 has been ignored here, and we move on up to the left-hand side of the tree, or the top part of the tree, which is good because this is where you're going to go to get to your top gun in this tank. 7.5 centimeter Pack 42 L70 gun from 4.51 to 3.55 seconds. Fair enough. And the 88 millimeter L56, 5.46 reload speed down to 4.6 seconds, which is a bloody big drop. Now, what does that mean in terms of raw numbers? Because I'm just giving you guys the reload speed reductions here, and I haven't really talked to you about what that means. So, if you were running the old 88 and you had the 5.46 reload, you had basically 11 rounds a minute, which gave you an average DPM of 2,417, right? Which is a lot. If you're running the new one, and you should be, because this tank's going to kick so much butt, you are now at 13 rounds a minute, and you have jumped up DPM stakes to 2,870 damage per minute. Now that is without running rations. It is without running your acceleration, and when you do all that, and you put your provisions in there, your improved fuel, and I'll just pretend I'm only using one, because that's what I want to do. And you can now see that that top gun is capable of some monstrously large numbers. You're going to be able to put out 3,223 damage per minute in the Jagdpanzer IV. This thing is going to be quite exciting. It has 220 alpha damage on a tier 6 tank, but it has 14.65 rounds per minute. Wow. 0.321 disperse. This thing is going to be one of the tanks I can't wait to drive post-patch. So yeah, there you go. Nashorn, not to be outdone. It got a, and this is great. I mean, I think this is so, I mean, look, I'm not happy that the VK2801 has been nerfed simply because I adore the tank. But I think parity is a very important thing in this world, and some of these tanks have been crying out for buffs. The Nashorn in particular, I drove it on stream not so long ago and showed how careful you've got to be with it and everything. Well, you've got 200 more hit points. It's up to 1,000 hit points now. The forward speed was increased by 5 kilometers an hour to 45. The horsepower of the top Maybach HL120 TRM-R was increased from 300 to 350 horsepower. The top engine traverse speed was decreased from 38.56 to 37.96, but it's not a big loss of traverse, like a degree isn't going to kill you there. And for the top engine traverse speed with the Verkstraden suspension, you end up with an increased traverse speed from 43.38 to 43.59. Again, next to nothing, but there you go. Dispersion on the move and hull traverse was decreased, which is the hidden stuff. And for the 8.8 centimeter Pack 43 L71, this one here, dispersion on gun traverse was decreased. It's just the goodies just keep on rolling, don't they? I mean, really, seriously, it's kind of nuts. The amount of cool stuff that you're getting for most of the tanks is good, and unfortunately you get that little bit of nerfing on the VK2801. I'm going to keep coming back to it because it makes me sad. Maximum forward speed for the T67 got nerfed down to 55 from 61. The top horsepower from the Buick Series 60 engine, that's this one here, was decreased from 330 to 300. The Wright Continental, however, was replaced by the Wright Continental R975E C4 engine, which is a big change. That was 460 horsepower, 550 kilos worth of weight. Was when 2,250 experience to research was replaced by an engine that is only 350 horsepower, 515 kilos of weight, and only costs 900 XP to research. It's a lot cheaper to get there, but again, look, this isn't a tank that I was a big fan of anyway, so it's not really making me that upset. Sorry. The T42 turret, reload time was increased to 4.303 seconds for the 57mm M1 gun. That's this one here, the stock gun. I thought you were doing too well in it, apparently. The 57mm gun M1 with the T49 turret, this one here. And this is something they've done at some point in some patch where they're now allowing you to play lower guns with higher turrets. That didn't used to be the case, by the way. Just interesting stuff that, you know, these are things that happen that kind of sneak in under the radar. Reload time was increased to 3.84 seconds when you're running the top one, and the dispersion on turret traverse was increased. There you go. For the 3-inch anti-tank gun M7, reload time was decreased, sorry. I'm not nerfing everything. From 7.92 seconds to 7, and the aiming time was increased from 3.6 to 4.1. So dispersion on turret traverse was increased as well. So you got a little bit more DPM, raw, a little bit of a faster reload, but you copped it between the in the ghoulies with your aim time and your dispersion on traverse. And the 76mm reload time was increased. Aim time was increased to 6.52 seconds for your reload and 4.1 seconds for your aim time. Dispersion on turret traverse was increased as well. There's a few other interesting ones here, which I'll get to. For instance, just some minor ones for T54E1. Research cost of the Continental AV1793 engine was increased from 19,000 to 23,750. There you go. That's this thing here. That's this engine. Right. They don't have 03, let's call it 3. It was increased from 19,000 to 23,750. So, you know, it costs you more money to buy it. Don't know why. They're tiny things, but they're looking at the numbers, so I guess they know what they're talking about. Let's have a look at the Churchills. Buffs. Traverse speed on the Churchill 1 went up by about 3.5 degrees per second to 23.38 on your traverse, which is great. And the reload time was decreased from 7.41 to 5.85 on the gun. That is the 75mm Vickers HV gun. So that's a big buff for this tank. Got more traverse, got more DPM. Hard not to like that. The Churchill 7 changes too. For the 75mm Vickers HV gun, it copped a buff as well. Obviously, it's getting buffed down below. It's getting buffed up above as well. From 6.77 to 5.75, and dispersion on turret traverse was decreased as well. For the turret, if you're running that gun with the Churchill 7 turret, this turret here, the reload time went down again to 5.46 seconds, and the dispersion on turret traverse was decreased as well. And for the big gun, the QF 77mm gun Mark II, reload time went down to 5.27 from 5.81. Dispersion at 100 meters was decreased from 345 to 0.336, and dispersion on turret traverse was decreased as well. It's a massive patch, hey, just an absolutely monstrous patch. But big changes there for the Churchill 1 and the Churchill 7. That's made them far more interesting. And I actually drove the Churchill 7 a little bit recently. I did very, very well in it, which made me feel a little bit dirty because I bagged it for so long. It's the ARL V39. Got a hit point increase from 780 to 900. More hit points, always thankful. I won't drive it, I still think it's a pile of poop tickets. The ARL 44. This tank was really, really, really good. And joins the VK2801 as a tank that got nerfed. The top engine traverse speed was decreased from 24.36 to 20.3. For the ARL 44 BIS with the top engine, where are we here? That's the suspension here. Traverse speed was decreased from 29.77 to 25.71. And here comes the real sucker. For 105mm, if you're using the 105mm, which is a great gun, a lot of fun, the reload time was increased from 10.54 to 13.13 seconds, and the dispersion on turret traverse was increased. So they really want you to run the 90mm, which, fair enough, run the 90mm, because it's a better gun for you now, I think, than the 105. That's how it is. Let's talk French lights, because they kind of got screwed. These are the ones that I'm ambivalent about, because I thought the ARL 44 was very, very good, and I thought it deserved a little bit of a nerf. I thought the VK2801, obviously, it's been one of the best tanks, if not the best tank pound for pound in the entire game since inception. Like, it's been the best forever. So I can see why they'd finally jump on that one. But the AMX 12T, the AMX 1375, the AMX 1390 all got nerfs. And this seems like a really, really quick bang out of the gate response to these tanks. I think they've obviously done very, very well. People have been doing very well in these tanks, and that's why they have been nerfed. I mean, there's no other way around it. They've done really, really well. Okay, let's jump to it before, because guys, you must be dying here. The AMX 12T, 75mm gun, SA49, I mean, pretty straight up and down. That one there, the stock gun, reload for the magazine was increased by a second to 17.62. Aim time was increased from 3.4 to 4.3. Didn't escape though, the SA50, the top gun, reload time magazine went up a second again from 15.6 to 16.64, and the aim time was increased from 3.4 to 4.3. I don't think these are game-breaking things. They're adjustments. They're not really what I'd call massive nerfs. The 1375 though, the 75mm SA49, much like it was on the 12T, aim time increased to 4.5 seconds from 4, so big nerf. The SA50 reload time went from 1.3 seconds to 2 between shells. Now that's huge. That's a really big thing. One of the best things about this tank, and I loved it, was it had 1.33 seconds between shells. Means 2.66 seconds total to fire all three in the clip, as opposed to 4. That's a lot. That is a huge increase. 0.6 seconds more is like 50% more. So 2.66 seconds to fire your whole clip. Previously, 4 seconds now. That's a real nerf. Aim time was increased from 3.5 to 4.4. 1390 for the 75mm SA50 gun. Reload time of one shell was increased to from 1.3 to 2 seconds. Same as on the AMX 1375. That's on this one here. The reload time of the magazine was increased from 11.75 to 12.7, and aim time was increased from 3.4 to 4.4. They're the same gun throughout those things, just with variant stats and better DPM, so it's no real surprise. They all got the kick. For the 90mm though, reload time on the shells was increased from 2 to 2.5. So that's between each shell now is 2.5 seconds, which is just freaking horrible. I mean, that's really crap. I don't like that change. That means 5 seconds as opposed to 4. 5 seconds is a long time for one of these tanks to be visible on target. You're nearly always going to get return fire if they have one in the shell, and you don't have any armor to stop that. So I'm not happy with that one, particularly out of all these nerfs. Reload time on the magazine went up a full second from 16.64 to 17.62, and the aim time increased by half a second from 3.9 to 4.4. Finally, yes, the Bat Chat repair cost was reduced by 62%. I had a game in the Bat Chat not long ago where I did 4,000 damage, used only AP rounds, APCR rounds, the stock standard rounds of the tank, and I lost 3,000 credits. That would seem to be insane. And thankfully, it is insane because the repair cost was stupid and it's been dropped by 62%. So, quality of life, I like those little changes. It means they're paying attention, really. There you go, boys and girls. That is a massive patch. The obvious thing there is the VK2801 and the French lights took a little bit of a hiding, and the ARL44. But if you look at all the tanks we've just been through, massive amounts of tanks, the overwhelming majority of them received buffs. I mean, and some of them were so overdue, and they really are paying attention. There's been constant changes to balance as we've progressed through in the last wee while. I'm sorry that was so long and so dry, but that's a patch day. If you want to know what's going on, that's exactly what's going on, with a little bit of a talk through on it. I'm sorry it was so dry. Like, I understand. I didn't want to do it like this, but there were so many changes. I may actually just put some, I'm thinking about putting some footage behind and making this a little small thing in the back so you've got at least something to watch while this is all going on. Maybe I'll do that. See how you go. Until next time, boys and girls, love your work. Look after yourselves out there. I should probably be somewhere near Minsk very, very soon. If you're going to the Twister Cup, drop by and say hello. And otherwise, stay safe on the battlefield.